Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Idea Fund Round 17 info session. My name is Camilo Gonzalez, and I'll be guiding you guys today through the whole kind of application process, some information, extra information you guys might need. But first, I wanted to welcome everybody. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. We are super excited to get this new round out. We're on our 17th round, and this project has been going on for quite a little bit. So I wanted to introduce our kind of, it's a team between Diverse Works, Aurora Picture Show, and Project Row Houses. We're all been collaborating in this for many years now. And I just want to bring in a little bit of I wanted to introduce Ashley and Chrislyn, who are working with us today. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. I am Ashley De Hoya's daughter. I'm the curator at Diverse Works, and I'm one of the administrators for the Idea Fund. I'll be the person that's behind the scenes with the feedback sessions, as well as application reviews and any of your submittable questions. So I'm excited you're all here, and we're excited to share round 17 with you. Chrissy Lynn.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Crystalline, and I am the recent round 17 intern. I'm so excited to be here for this presentation. And as Ashley and Camilo said, this has been going on for a while. So if you guys have any questions while we're presenting, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll get to you guys.
Also, just to say that we are unfortunately not joined by our Project Row House's representative. Danielle Wilson-Burns is traveling, but she will be here with us on our next info session, which will be hosted on October 30th at Project Row Houses in person.
Do you want to do the land acknowledgement, Ashley?
Yeah. So we're going to start the info session off with a brief land acknowledgement. We believe that truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connections, and we would like to acknowledge that our offices are located on the ancestral lands of the Atakapa Ishak, the Karankawa people, and the native people that share the Southeast Texas region, including the Carrizo Kromokrudo, Tonkawa, and Gwilentekin. We acknowledge that this land is occupied, unceded territory, and we pay tribute to them. We honor their past, present, and their elders, as well as future generations. And we know that land acknowledgements are complex statements, as well as Indigenous history here in Texas and in Houston can be complex. And there are many narratives. And for any of you that would like to do the same and acknowledge your history or your tribe or your ancestor, we also offer the opportunity to do so in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Chrislyn. All right, super excited to have you guys here today. This, as we mentioned, is a really unique grant opportunity. Our mission has always been kind of supporting the innovative experimental visual art projects that are happening in everybody's heads. So that's where the whole name came from. We've done a total of 157 projects, over 517 artists all around. So there's always been a beautiful, beautiful connection between the community, and we're super excited to launch this new round. We're funded by the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts, and as Ashley mentioned, we're a combination of Diverse Works, Aurora, and Project Row Houses. So just to go through the timeline, we got our application launch just in September 15. Will you guys have the application deadline for November 13? We will have the jury review all of the applications in early January and let everybody know by mid-January who was awarded for the grant. We'll have a little reception for everybody to meet each other, share their projects, and that will be in February. And then the final report will be by December 2014. We'll have 2 info sessions. This is one of them. The next one is October 14 at 6 p.m. Hope you can, if you have any questions, also like Kristen said, just put them in the chat and then we'll go through them as soon as I finish. Also, this year we're trying the approach. We used to do just $5,000 grants. Now you can apply to be either a $5,000 grant or 2,500 based on your projects. A lot of them change depending on whatever your structure is for your project. So depending on that, you can apply to either one of them. Basically, who can apply? We're part of a bigger kind of it's a big space that we cover. We're in 9 different counties. You can see that we're covering Austin, Brazoria, Chambers, Fort Bend, Galveston, Harris, Liberty, Montgomery, and Waller. This means that whoever's applying for the grant, the lead artist should be, or whoever you're working with, should be part of this coverage. So, and then all of this information, once again, we'll go over this, but everything will be on our website under the idfund.org. So, just so you know that before you start thinking about how to apply, there are some restraints on who can't apply. For instance, a 501 nonprofit. If you don't live in the 9 eligible Greater Houston area counties, you cannot apply. And projects that don't have a public component is something that we're really interested in behind the whole fund project, the idea of fund. So I think that's something to consider because that's the whole concept behind it. And then projects who do not exemplify or like innovative practices in the just contemporary art itself. So what gets funded though? That's the cool thing. Pretty much anything. Like it's really a unique opportunity here in town to look into if you're an upcoming artist or if you're a scientist or if you're a writer or I don't know. It's pretty open. It will definitely it's all about innovative like approaches to interact with the community and see how much impact you can have through different ways of connecting with it. So a lot of projects fall within kind of a visual arts practice. So painting, drawing, sculpture, from cross-disciplinary art to new media, digital processes, of course, the traditional stuff. But it's really open and anything can like gravitate towards a specific medium, but it's really the community aspect that we're interested in. So for instance, we've done many projects before, but I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about like some examples of projects. We've had this is a project by Henry Sanchez, and he did the biotorium, which is an interesting space that he used containers to create a really unique social engagement science lab where they have talks, they have photography classes, and then they go on tours, they tell you a little bit about the history of the bayou and all this stuff. So he's not just making a simple kind of art space. No, he's totally like looking beyond on what can be done with your social practice and your art practice. Or projects like the Rising Tide project, where it was a little space in Galveston where they basically repurposed the space and created a whole gallery where they would host talks, conversations, I mean, I think like they did books and scenes and all sorts of different cool things to activate just the space itself. And once again, working with the community to have some like type of component that would tie it all in. All right, so today is a little bit about how to apply. We've been using the Submittable platform, so all you gotta do is log into your Submittable. And there's 4 big aspects of this. One is your project summary and description. The project, it will ask you a little bit about, and we'll go through the presentation and I'll pull it up. But basically you need to have a project summary, a description, you need to have your resume and CV ready to go. Of course, a budget and a budget description where you kind of hash out every single part of the project and who you're paying, how much you're paying yourself, and we'll go through this as well. And the 5 work samples. The work samples can be anything from audio files to Word documents. It can be any image or links to videos on Vimeo. So it's pretty open to whatever examples you guys have of your artwork. And of course, at the end, it's the question of how the project is related to contemporary visual arts is another big part of it. So I'm gonna bring up the applications. If you guys go to Submittable, you'll find the application is now open. And this is where you put in your information, who will be the contact for the project, who is your lead artist, and how we're going to be in contact. And this is important where the address is located because you have to be in this specific county that we mentioned. So the grant amount, depending on your project description and budget, you can select either 5,000 or 2,500. And photo, we used to not take video, but now like with the new application, we can definitely take video and audio. So it's really interesting, the new Submittable like capabilities too. This is a little bit about the narrative, the application narrative, where you're gonna either write it or you can actually do an audio or visual narrative through one format, either audio or video. So you can select your project title and include either the narrative or any audio or visual narrative you want to include. So the application will go through like specifically who are you and why do you want to create this project? Like mainly, what is your vision of your project and how it will be experienced by the community you're working with. So this is the moment where you're going to share a little bit about how everything will be handled and just the whole narrative behind it. And there's another question, like, what are the goals of this project? So like basically describe or break them down in a way that you see the impact and what you want to aim with this new project. And so, and also bringing in how it will have an impact on the communities or audience you're working with. So that's another important question. And the last question, which is how does this project relate to contemporary art? I leave that up to you guys. It depends on what you're doing, but also very important to have this, think about this and think about how it all, this is the moment where you tie it all in. All right, budgets are tricky, but you're including a budget narrative and you can upload your own budget. You're welcome to use any type of budget that you want to include. There's also a link there where you can download a template from the website, and I'll pull it up. Can you guys see it? It's not letting me switch. Sorry, 1 second. All right. So this is the idea fund budget template that you will be able to download. And this is kind of a very broad. You can include more stuff or kind of delete stuff based on whatever your needs are. But don't forget to include, a lot of people forget to pay themselves. Don't forget to pay yourself 20 to 30% based on the budget, like project, or I don't know, however you want to pay yourself, or if you're the only one doing it, you should definitely include yourself. Include any type of travel expenses, housing, and if you're using it in kind or you're gonna use it in your budget, that's a good way to kind of keep track, even if the project exceeds a little bit of what your expenses or what the fund will be able to grant you. You can still say at the end how much the idea fund grant is going to cover, but if other people are doing in-kind expenses, you can also include that. Don't forget to include production fees in terms of like what supplies you'll need, what hire labor, if you're getting anything, or a rental or a venue fees, documentation. Do you want people taking pictures? Do you want people, are you paying for a production crew, or any type of like services that you contracted outside of it project? Things like, we've done projects where people need permits, city permits, and things like that can all go into the whole budget. And also marketing is another part of it that people tend to forget. If you're going to be promoting your project, what are you using? Are you using online, not online? All sorts of different things that you can figure out how you want to spend your money. That should add all to your total budget, and then based on that, you can include if you're going to be selling merchandise or doing whatever it is, and any other donations or anything like that. It's always good to include it, because when the judges are looking at the budget, they're going to notice, and they know how to create and they produce public art before, so they know a little bit about the expenses. So they'll be making sure that you're not just throwing numbers out there, but they're like that you're actually thinking about how much you're contributing to the whole project itself. All right, now back to this one. So budget, once you got your budget, you can upload it. If you guys want, like I mentioned before, if you don't want to use the template, you're welcome to use your own. This is where work sample are uploaded. You can upload pretty much all sorts of different formats, from video to audio to any PDF or images. You can include links to Vimeo or YouTube for people to take a look, for the judges to look at. And at the end, we're going to ask you a little bit about your background. So if you want to include your resume and CV or CV on it, please upload that. And bio is always important if you're applying as your own, if you're on your own, or if this is a group of artists, please include information about yourselves, and any links to social media or website is always super helpful for the judges to look at. Then this is mostly a demographic survey. It will not affect any eligibility or selection and through the selection process. This is mostly for us to kind of have an idea of the people who are working with us. And that's pretty much it. Once you finish that, well, I'm gonna go back to the slideshow. You'll submit through Submittable, and you'll be able to stay in touch with us. So a little bit of tips. Keep it simple. There's a lot of applications, so if you're not getting to the point, it's not clear, judges are not going to spend that much time with an application. So try to be just brief on how, who, what, when, and where, and why kind of concepts. Please develop your thoughts, like what are your ideas, what's behind your project, why is it important to the city, to the community, to the neighborhood you're working with. Tell us a little bit about what you hope to achieve. What are your goals? Basically, how will it be, like how you're envisioning the whole thing in terms of the experience for the audience, the experience for yourself as an artist. All of those little things tend to really benefit your application. Once again, I mentioned on the budget, you have to be realistic in detail because that will make your budget clear and understandable based on your project description. So try to be just why, or like when you're explaining your budget, like how you're allocating certain money. If it doesn't make sense in numbers, you can include some information why you're spending certain money on specific things. And that can be applied to materials or a production crew, or like maybe that some people that can make you like a documentary or help you a little bit. So include all of that information in there, so whenever the application is being looked at, there's ways to back up your decisions. Once again, don't forget to pay yourself 20 to 35 to cover all the intellectual labor that you're doing in the project is key. So don't forget to do to include that in your even if the project is new, it's really important to include some type of work that will support your project itself. Like if you're applying for something and you want to create a project around like a screening series and you're sending images of paintings you did a couple of years ago, it might not benefit your project as much as more recent and work samples that kind of resonate with the whole plan that you have. Please include work samples also, even if they don't exist. If you have some idea, you can do mock-ups of different type of new like stuff, how you're envisioning stuff, and like installation purposes, or if you're working with a community, like try to figure out what's the best work samples that can complement your work. And please include descriptions and information about the work sample itself, not just images. It's good to know a little bit about how like why that image is there or what's the context of it. Okay, some frequently asked questions are, like I mentioned, what type of projects are eligible for funding. Something that we always think is key to like figure out the best applications is finding artistic and creative strength behind the project, the vision that you have of not just doing traditional, but like thinking outside the box and figuring out different ways to bring art to the community. Also the capacity of the applicant. That's where your CV or previous work might be important to include, that you've been able to finalize a project or you've done certain things that are kind of like it. And that shows that you're capable of finishing a project. So accessibility of the resulting project to the public as either as in person or online event. And then commitment to serving a local community. So that's what makes you like eligible. What are some past projects or ideas that have been funded? Like I mentioned, I show you guys some examples. You can go on our website and you will find past grantee projects. You can research through through the database, and you can look at all the different type of projects we funded. And I think you'll find that on, I think someone just dropped it out on the chat. So basically this is the cool thing about this funding opportunity is it can be anything. Basically it can be an individual artist or collective or just association of temporary association of different artists or friends, whatever you guys want to call yourselves, that's totally fine. It can be an artist run space, temporary or permanent. basically projects that focus on just an unconventional art form or practice tend to stand out a lot. An exhibition that has a strong public component, once again, the public component or just the community component is something that you should always keep in mind for this application. Also, this could be a creative writing course, online publications. It can be an intervention to a space or a site-specific installation, depending on what type of artwork that you do. We funded web-based projects, and of course, audio and video photo projects. We've done all sorts of different engagement events, either online or in person. A lot of social practice and community events. So the range is pretty big. All you got to do is be a little bit creative and think of a cool way to deliver that to the judges. So what's the review process and the selection criteria? All the judges are evaluating each of the applications based on artistic and creative strength of the project, the vision of the project, and once again, the capacity and accessibility to the project from the community and from the artists themselves. A panel of professionals will be selected. I think it's usually 3 judges, and they'll be in person going through each of the applications. And they're usually very well known. We include also, as part of the panel, previous grantees. We include local and national artists. So it's a good mix, and people will know what Houston is about and what you're trying to do in the community. Our TIFF panel usually includes another partner or two from re-granting, because the Andy Warhol Foundation does different versions of this kind of funding application in different parts of the country. So we try to include people from some of those organizations who are doing the same thing, and of course a local perspective or in a national perspective. How many projects proposals can you submit? Basically, groups and collectives can submit 1, and each member can submit multiple individual projects. Just know that the likelihood of that project with the same artist or a concept to be funded at the same time is very slim. So this is outside of our hands, but the jurors will definitely look at it. Do you offer application reviews before submitting? Yes, we do. On our website, again, you can find our link to the calendar, where you can schedule a time to sit down and go over your questions. And if you have any other information that you're missing, Ashley will be able to meet with you and go through your application and give you some tips. So please use that. It's really helpful. Not everybody does that, but it's super helpful. So don't forget to use that resource. All right. I know it's a lot of information and I went through a lot, so I'm going to let you guys kind of pitch in a little bit more too. I know that there's been people on the chat, so getting some questions ready. So I'm going to open up the floor for Ashley. Maybe if you want to start answering some of these questions, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of questions in the chat that came up that we should circle back to. I think Bridget had a question about talking about the 2 funding levels and what proposals are better fit for each. So just to give you an update, the TIP partners decided that after doing 2 rounds of $5,000 grants only, that we were seeing a lot of applicants and a lot of projects that were being awarded that weren't spending their grant money within the grant cycle. That could be for various reasons. But we also noticed that there was an increase of emerging artists that were applying to the Idea Fund. And we wanted to also make sure that there was an accessibility, or that the funds were accessible to do smaller projects for first-time artists. And so with that, we went back to kind of our traditional structure where we had 3 funding levels, but this time we decided on 2 levels. So it'll be up to the jurors to decide what, how many $5,000 grants we'll give away and how many $2,500 grants. But as an applicant, it's up for you to decide how you want your application, like what you're specifically applying for, and how you want your application to be awarded if you were to be awarded a grant. So in the new application field, you will select a box of either 2,500 or 5,000. Now, the other side of the idea of a smaller grant, or to have a 25 or 5,000 grant, these are still funding levels that they produce a sizable project, but they're not a $10,000 award or $20,000 award. We're going to produce a huge project. We know that, we recognize that it's a substantial funding amount, but it's not going to cover everything in a large project. So we have also seen, so the grant will also allow you to leverage your funding. So a lot of our grants, and this was a question about the Houston Arts Alliance, Let Creativity Happen grant, or an individual artist award grant through their funding. Yes, you can apply for both for the same project, or if you have a larger project, then you can apply for a specific part of your budget to be covered by the Idea Fund. And it can be a sum of a larger whole. So if you have a $10,000 project and 5 of that is already covered, then you could apply for the Idea Fund to specifically cover part of whatever the additional 5,000 you need, whether that's to help print, to do community workshops, to actually build a screen, rent a space, whatever you need. You just have to outline that in your budget narrative. So it's really up to the applicant on how those projects will fit the budget criteria. Maybe you only need $2,500 because you want to experiment and try something small and then eventually scale up. Maybe you've already got other grants and your budget is larger than the 5,000 and you're trying to match. So it's really up to you. I will say the $2,500, it's a substantial to do more something experimental, to explore a topic or a theme or a project. A 5,000, that gives you a little bit more money to play with as well as to pay yourself. So really it's going to be up to each applicant as they're applying. Camilo, I think there was another question about, hold on, I'm looking in the chat. Is there a theme or prompt for round 17?
No.
No. No. So typically we try not to do themes. We have tried to focus more on the community impact, and the community, more community public facing projects. And when we talk about community impact or community, like it has to have a community event, something has to happen. It can't just be an exhibition where there's artwork that hangs on the wall. Like maybe it's an exhibition and there's workshops. Maybe there's workshops that are helping create the work that goes in the exhibition. Maybe there's a reading response to the exhibition or writing workshop. There just community has to be involved, or something public has to happen. We're not traditionally funding, artists practice to do new work that's gonna typically fill a space or sit on the wall. It's usually very active, or it's a hybrid of new work that's being made with community or with others in collaboration, or it's an experimentation. So that's going to be the biggest thing that's core in the Idea Fund. And so we ask a couple of questions. It's, how accessible is this project to the community and your community constituents, as well as you know, what is the public event? And so the jurors talk about that. Now we know as you're applying to the Idea Fund that all of your projects are probably in a proposal state. It's okay if you don't know all of the answers to your questions. We really just want you to create a vision. If you have any type of collaborators that you can name them. If there are artists that you're looking at and I think this was a question about open calls, like talk about your process and why that's important to this project. So that way the jurors kind of understand your framework and where you're coming from. A lot of the times we see applicants who are applying and they haven't filled in all the blanks for the jurors. And so there's questions that the jury has, you know, whether the project's feasible, if there's an experience that lends itself to make the project stronger, or if it's a new practice, like what is their skill set to be doing something like building that project, right? So all of those help, all like application components help you tell that story of who you are, why this is important to you, and what skills you're bringing to the table. And you, in your narrative, you want to continue to express that.
There was another one about, is there a deadline for the project completion once funding is received? We're pretty flexible to working with you guys in terms of, we understand things are not set, or if you're working 1 year in advance, like it's hard to tell like when it will finish. So the most important thing I would say, Ashley, is to be in communication with us about this. Right?
Yeah, and most grants, we typically try to get most grantees to finish their project within the grant cycle. So this cycle, round 17, is for 2024. So some applicants will apply for projects and they'll get their funding and their projects done by April. Others might have to wait until the fall of that year or closer to December. But for some reason you can't get it in by December 2024, like that's a conversation between the TIF partners and I, and so and us. And so usually there's some flexibility with that, but ideally your project should be completed within the 2024 year.
Thank you for clarifying, Ashley. I think Christine asked, can the budget including collaborations with people include collaborations with people digitally? Can it include accommodation artists from out of the region? Okay.
Yes, that's
Yes.
fine. We just again stress that if the project, something has to happen here in Houston. If it's a digital thing, usually there's like a digital launch or some type of like celebration or screening or conversation. We just ask that something happens here. COVID has and granting during that time period had to kind of really create some flexibility about how programs were developed. So I think if you're awarded and there's questions about how your program is developing, then we can talk with you and address with any concerns or any shifts as they may appear on the back end. So, and also just to be clear, the Idea Fund partners, like we're here as a support system. We actually don't help implement the project. So we will provide the funding to you. Funding is typically awarded in 2 payments. You have a first payment. Traditionally, it's been $4,000 up front, $1,000 when the project is complete for $5,000 projects. We're for the 2,500. I'm not sure what we're going to do yet for that. So usually there's the completion project, you do a final report and then you get your funding, your last funding. So we typically work with you behind the scenes and we kind of connect you with your cohort so you can troubleshoot. But we don't help secure locations. We don't help mount the exhibition or co-host anything. That's all in your hands. So we're just here to connect you with other people. Like if you need someone who is great with projectors, or if you need someone who is maybe works fabricating something, like we can help with those resources, but we can't actually present or produce your project with you.
And that's something important, like even when you have questions, it's better to ask us. So please include us. Use the idea of the Calendly to like set up a meeting and have all these questions kind of written down and be ready, because we can definitely, we've been in the community and working with artists for a very long time. So we tend to know whoever is doing whatever it is that you're looking for. So it never hurts to ask. So please include it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think Crystalline sent the Calendly that should open. We'll check the link, but that I have it scheduled to open up tomorrow. The office hours are usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday for review sessions, or you can email us at the info@theideafund.org or info@theideafund@gmail.com. And we can try to set up something that's outside of those hours if those hours don't work for you. They're usually 15-minute opportunities. The more information you share with us in advance, the better that those review sessions can be, because then we can actually read your application or prepare for your questions beforehand. And you can do multiple review sessions. They typically will be with me, but you can also reach out to us individually. So if you're close with people at Aurora, you're close with people at Project Row Houses, then you can, obviously connect with your community and have them review your applications too.
Especially if you guys know the nature of the three organizations, you'll know on whose door to knock, depending on what you're working on. If not, just set up a time with us and we'll be happy to direct you in the correct direction.
Yeah. And all of our information will be on our website. As we said in the beginning, we are recording this webinar for future reference, so we can put that in there. And then we will follow up with everybody who's registered with a copy of the recording and a PDF of the presentation, as well as that updated Calendly link to sign up for review sessions. We also do feedback sessions so for whatever reason, if your application is not selected, then you can always request a juror feedback session and we'll go over the jury process with you. And I'm usually very transparent and open about the jury requirements and the process and how it went, where your application fell within the overall rubric, and giving you details as well as any kind of feedback. We don't typically scratch that. Sometimes we don't have comments for every application by our jurors, but we do take notes and we can kind of share the ethos of how the jurors were voting or what the urgent topics were or topics they felt needed to be addressed, and share that with you as well.
Anybody have any other questions? I know we're boring, guys, but it's all right.
Looks like there's a new.
Nah, just thank you.
You're welcome, Bridget.
Oh, Sophie, sorry. Let me look it up.
Okay, so Sophie's question is, I want to curate and mount an exhibition that's centered around a specific theme, but accept submissions via an open call. Is a project like this eligible? Yes, that is a project like that is eligible, and you should apply. And the second part of that is the work samples, and if the 5 images can be examples of work that you're looking for rather than work I'm proposing to exhibit. I think that in your proposal, you should submit and name artists that you're looking at, and you can say proposed artists are and list them, and then you could put together a PDF of proposed work. I think for jurors, what they're going to want to see if you're proposing an exhibition, if you have a history of curating exhibitions or have a practice of organizing something like an event or program to kind of set that history and feasibility that this is something you can do. If this is a new project for you, then submit your own work samples, or some, you can kind of submit a maquette of the exhibition and what you're imagining. Curatorial proposals are interesting and hard to submit work samples with, because it's usually other people's work, or you're having to, show images of things that you've produced. I always find it helpful to put together like a couple of PDFs with like a description of the show, in either a presentation or a Word doc, and submit that. And so you can submit a PDF as a work sample with multiple images if it's like a project or a body of work, but you can only submit 5 of those. So just be mindful when you're submitting that you have 5 opportunities to upload work, but in the amount of pages, you should probably keep it between 5 to 6 pages, but you don't want to overwhelm the jurors. Video samples are really good too. So if you've put together an exhibition, or you've talked about your work, or you have other flyers or social media examples, then those are good to share as well.
Yeah, the same thing. Like, I just want to reiterate, like, don't give us like a 1 hour film, because it's gonna be too much. You gotta be like smart on the way you present your work, or how you're connecting the different artists. And you see, like, when the jurors are looking at this, they're gonna want to see connections being made, either with the community through the artists, or with yourself. It's very important to keep that in mind.
So there's a question about venue location and if they have to be booked by the time we submit. No, that does not have to be booked. I think if you're envisioning a specific venue, or you're thinking about a specific place, I would say list it and list it as proposed. Just know that Aurora Picture Show, Project Row Houses, and Diverse Works cannot host your project. This happens every year, where we say this in info sessions or feedback review sessions, and it doesn't, someone will still put that they're going to have their event at our space, and it's actually a conflict of interest and we can't. So it's just it's a funny thing that we see behind the scenes, but just know that we can't. So you can't say that you're going to propose to do like Eldorado Ballroom, because that is part of Project Row Houses, unless you are going to do Eldorado Ballroom and you've actually talked to PRH, and then you can do that. But it's just a funny thing that happens in terms of where things are going. But no, you don't have to have any of these ideas solidified. Like, it's a proposed project. We know that the grant period is a year, and the project is going to change as the year goes on. So really, it's just about naming what you're envisioning and the proposed ideas that you have, so that it's clear for the jurors.
And community engagement be more process instead of product. Like, if the work we collaborated to make with members of the community was photographed, installed in their homes, rather than hosting a large scale public event.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of involving the community that isn't just based on the event, or is the final thing. It can be. We have a couple of grantees right now that are actually making quilts. Marley Foster, who's around 16 grantee, is doing quilt workshops. We had another grantee who is doing like looking at archives, and they're interviewing people about objects in the trans community, and like the history of objects, to create a TV show. So the way that you involve community, it should be true to your artistic practice. It should in the projects. We don't want you to force it. But we just want you to have some type of public event. So the community event doesn't have to be the final public event. But if the community is involved in your process, it's going to be really up to you, as long as there's something that happens.
Like, a few years back, there was even a truck playing noise music that was made with the community, like all noise music, a loud truck driving around town playing noise music. So like it really like it can change and shift depending on how it resonates with your art practice, like Ashley said. But this is one of those cool grants that you can really just challenge the way that art is being made. So I totally encourage everybody to continue on that path line because it will make your application stand out.
Yeah, and just to also state too that like the idea fund partners don't vote. We are there in the room. We typically are very quiet through the jury process unless a juror is asking clarifying questions, or if the juror is from out of town and they need insight into what's happening locally. We try not to sway votes, or it's really up to the jurors to determine like what is relevant in this time period. That's why we try to choose someone who is on the grantee, that's like a past grantee, and then a national regional perspective that has an understanding of Houston. So that there's like Houston context, and like we're there to provide it, but like I said, we don't typically vote. So it really is up to the jurors how, and in their expertise and what they're seeing in their spaces as well, to highlight and to award.
All right. Well, if no one else has any other questions.
Oh, there's a question in the Q&A and whether or not there's an interview component to the application process. We don't have a straightforward, like we typically are reviewing everything that's in the application. All applications go through an eligibility review. So we are checking to make sure that you live within one of the 9 counties. That's why your address is requested. If you have collaborators that live outside of the county, that's fine. The lead artist is the one that has to list their address, and that will be verified. The lead artist is also the grant person who will receive the grant fee payment. The lead artist is also the person who takes responsibility for the financial end on the taxes at the end of the year. So if you are going to organize a collective or create a collective to apply for this project, or you already have a collective and you have different members that do different things, just know whoever is applying as lead will be the primary fiduciary responsible person for getting the payment, receiving the contract, signing everything. And so we make sure that they have to live within one of those 9 counties. We've had projects where we've had there was some outside state collaborators, and but as long as we had that one person that was lead artist that lived in any of the counties, that was fine. And then this year, the main difference is that we won't be interviewing you per se, but there is an opportunity to tell your story outside of written narrative. So really, several of the Idea Fund grantees have served on other grant panels, and we're always looking at the experiences that our partner regranting programs are offering, as well as other grants that may be happening here in the city of Houston or nationally, regionally. And the video and audio component is a new part of our application that we're hoping to allow, we hope to allow our applicants to tell their story in their own words, in the best medium that works for them. So some people are great writers, other people are great storytellers and can use the audio or visual as a response as a way to enhance their application or to share their ideas clearly if they're not someone who feels strong in writing about those ideas. So the way that we have that set up is to upload a link. So we encourage you to either record your audio or visual and share that to like a YouTube or Vimeo or Bandcamp, and then share the link with us so that we're not downloading, or you're not having to upload directly to Submittable like a 5 gig or megabyte file. We hope the link system is helpful for that. But if it does become a problem, or if you're running into any issues with the application, please feel free to reach out to any of us or the Idea Fund directly, and we can help you with that.